Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler. Did you miss me? And we are back once again to review the 4 matches which took place in the Scottish Premiership on Saturday. So there will be another podcast coming out tomorrow, very early tomorrow. I'll try and get up as soon as possible, which will review the 2 games on Sunday as Rangers go to Hibs and Celtic host Falkirk. But for now, we're just talking about the 4 Saturday games, and to help me go through each of those, I am joined by Tony Anderson. Tony, how's it going?
I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm well. I'm coming to you from my mother and father's house in Kilmarnock. I'm going for lunch later, so I'm actually not going to the Hibs game because that game got moved. But that's working out fine because obviously all of Alloa are pretty much Rangers fans, so I could just go to the pub and join them today. I'll get my strip ready, got my Union Jack face paint ready to go. And I think I'll fit right in. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're now at the stage where you said at the chat last night where you were like, I think I want us to lose tomorrow. And I was just like, Tony, if the roles were reversed, I would want Hearts to lose every single game to Celtic and Rangers between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, they're starting to get to that stage with the Hibs fans. It's like his fans thinking like, you're wrong to ever think this way. I don't think I am. Sorry to say. I can live with finishing 5th or 6th. There's nothing else to really happen. I mean, getting up to 4th would take a push and it would be good, but we can still finish 4th. If it's really happening, just lose today as well. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
So, Saturday games. So obviously we'll all talk about Hearts, but Tony, do you think we should talk about Hearts' win at Dundee United first, or shall we talk about Kilmarnock's win over Aberdeen first? What do you think is the more interesting game?
I think obviously in terms of the country, probably more people are entwined into that Hearts game yesterday, but for the Terrace and a team that hasn't won since fucking October, I think we should be going to Kilmarnock and let's enjoy them. And I think you watched Kilmarnock right through. Neil McCann's back. I sat here last week saying that it was a fucking joke, and there was no chance that McCann and Dodds could turn it over. I didn't actually say that, but you know what I mean. I said I thought it was a stretch too far to go for guys that are a bit that sort of inexperienced to be dumped in that situation. I didn't like the idea of it. I didn't think it was going to work for anyone. And as so often happens, I should just go into a dark room and shut up.
Well, do you know what? Fair play to Neil McCann, because he stuck to his guns from what he thought was the best way to set out his Kilmarnock team, despite the fact that they lost 4-0 at Motherwell last week. So he set them up in the diamond again. He kept the same formation. And I suppose we should maybe remember, like, you just look at getting gubbed at Motherwell and thinking, well, why would you start with that again? That was clearly a disaster. But remember that they did have a goal disallowed, and they did actually start the game against Motherwell quite well. And then, they lost the goal, and then they got a man sent off, and then the walls caved in. But, sorry, go for it.
I think for McCann, and I have to say I totally agree with this, is that he obviously, Kilmarnock aren't good enough to be sliding up in a 4-4-2. They're not like they'll get murdered in the midfield if they do that. But he's got the sensibility where he's probably thinking, John Jules, Bruce Anderson really works. It works. When you look at that on paper and you look at their attributes, you go, right, that should work. They should really complement each other well. So, and Kilmarnock aren't good enough to sort of ignore that. That could become like almost the strongest part of their team, which is sort of the most important part of any team really is the forward line. So he's probably thought, right, what's the way that I can get them on there? And you're probably thinking for a team with Kilmarnock's squad and ability, probably there has to be a diamond to allow for that to happen. Or it's going to have to be some sort of hybrid formation to make sure they don't just get like walked over in midfield. So to be fair to him, I think he's looked at what he's got and went, in reality, the best to get, I need to get these 2 guys on the pitch together. This is probably the only way I can do it.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest improvement to the lineup from last week. Well, 2 of them. He also, obviously, Lowry was sent off against Motherwell, so he was suspended, and in his place came David Watson. I think they probably just need to be a bit more battling. I could see his thinking with Lowry as that kind of deep-lying playmaker, but the guy's about 4'10" by the looks of it, and they're in a dogfight. Like, you need to. I know McCann likes his teams to play football, but you also maybe need a bit more battle there. So it was Brad Lyons who was sitting against Aberdeen, and Watson played on the right of the diamond with Polworth on the left. I thought that role suits Polworth quite well. He's kind of he's got that creative ability in him. He's got that passing ability, but at times in his career we have questioned his battling qualities and his defensive play. So having him as that kind of like hybrid, as you put it, as like somebody who could drift out wide but come into the centre, I think that suits him quite well. And the change from last week was up front with Bruce Anderson starting instead of Marcus Dackers. I think you were starting Dackers and John Jules together. I mean, Jules, I think, hasn't done too bad this season in terms of his minutes to goals ratio, but you're still kind of wondering, right, where's the goals coming from? You don't really trust Dackers to kind of run in behind and do anything like that. He's got the pace, but he doesn't really have much of an end product. And in this game,
Anderson's a proven entity as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think if you gave Anderson a full run as a striker, you're probably going to, in a team, you're probably going to get to very close to double figures, if not double figures. And again, when you're looking at what Kilmarnock have, that can't really be ignored. And I think with John Jules, I think as you see with that second goal, they'll complement each other really, really well. And I think it really works because John Jules really good with his back to goal. Whenever I've watched him, I've really liked that side of him. He's got a really good touch. He can take the ball in. And then Anderson is a buzz bomb who likes to drift. He likes to go around. He's a very active striker. So you can't really have him as the lone guy because they're not always going to be guys in the box to do it. So this way it looks like both of them will be happy to get to do what their strengths allow. And so I think this could be, he really might have found something that I might have to go start believing that this team might be able to do something.
And the shape really kind of helped them overwhelm Aberdeen. So I don't think I actually said the score.
Not a difficult thing to do, ultimately.
I don't think I said the score or the scores of this game. So for those who don't know, or just going to listen to the podcast blind, 3-0 to Killie. This finished with Killie scoring twice in the first 14 minutes of this game through Lyons and Anderson.
I'm a huge fan of the idea that you think people cover their ears when the results come on. I'm listening to Terry's podcast tomorrow. Oh no,
Tony. No, it's not necessarily covering their ears. I've definitely had people in the past say, like, people who are listed from abroad or outside of Scotland and haven't been like, don't know all the results, maybe just check it on their team, but don't like look at the full list and listen to the podcast without actually knowing what the scores are. So it's for those people.
Oh wow, I love the idea that I actually break news to people now about their teams. Did not know that.
No, probably not their teams, but other teams as well. Maybe just looking at the score of their team, and then they're not bothering with the rest.
I'm going to start making shit up. There we go.
at least not maybe looking to see who the goal scorers were or how the murder unfolded.
Yeah.
And so Killie were 2-0 the first 14 minutes. Like, they just overwhelmed Aberdeen, and they did for a lot of this game. Like I think the formation kind of helped because they were able to press Aberdeen at every kind of level, because they've got you've basically got like 5 levels of players when you play with a diamond. You've got your back 4, you've got the guys sitting in front of them, you've got the 2 in the middle, you've got your number 10, and you've got your forwards. And that was just what happened. Like, Aberdeen struggled to pass it out from the back. They struggled to build it through the play. Mitchell Frame at left back, I think, was probably Aberdeen's lone bright spot in this one. I was quite impressed with him getting down the left. Yeah, I heard he had a decent write-up in a game recently as well. But he didn't have much help on the left. Keskinen was back to being poor. On the other side, Devlin didn't get involved enough in the attack. Bolanovic was completely invisible in the first half and was a bit poor on his defensive duties. And on the other side, Killie, their fullbacks were both very good. Dominic Thompson and Schoening, Larson. Just call him Larson. He was kind of, because Kiltie often likes to drift out. Kiltie starts at number 10, but he likes to drift out to the left to kind of create the overloads out there. So Larson pretty much had the flank to himself, but he had a really good game, kind of attacking the flanks, and that was just night and day from what Aberdeen were showing at the other side.
It's like, when I was speaking last week, as I said, I was thinking at Kilmarnock, it's a really weak team. And like he's getting managers in who really not really experienced this, and it's asking a lot of everyone to do this. But then obviously they've signed a few new players who I know were on the bench there. But to look on the flip side, and it's like Aberdeen coming off a 6-2 win. You think that's going to give you a jolt? You've got a new manager coming in soon. They're still signing players, and it's just testament to how weak-willed this squad and team are. That the next time they come up against a team who decides to show some battling qualities and sort of gets it together, and they absolutely fold. It's quite unnerving to think how much money's been wasted at Aberdeen on guys that just they just don't fancy it. Never mind they're not good enough. And that I'd be absolutely fizzing if I was a Aberdeen fan, because as you see in games when the going's good, like the Livingston game, and you're like, wow, some of these guys are good. You know, like Keskinen, for example, he looked electric, and Nisbet looked back to his best, and then straight away a week later the other team turns up and sort of like gives them something to think about. Like Nisbet can barely finish again. He's like that pathetic shot on the line when he tries to tuck it in, and like you're saying, like Keskinen, Bilalovic just go completely missing, and it's just like, what is going on, man? Like what? Like these guys, like some of the worst people to ever come into here in terms of what their sort of mental attributes are to like what's expected in this league. It seems like it's just so badly put together with no real insight into what's expected.
And just as you were talking there about like, the one last weekend 6-2, and therefore they should be coming into this one kind of raring to go. You should be flying. This just popped in my head. It's a bit random, but I was just thinking maybe it was like the opposite of the Alex Ferguson, lads, it's Tottenham. Maybe at full time last week, so that they didn't get ahead of themselves. Peter Leven came in the dressing room and went, lads, it's Livy. And then that was it. Any confidence they had was just through the floor. They were reminded that they scored 6 goals against a team that's just not fit for this league at all.
Or he went, lads, we're Aberdeen.
Before this one.
Before this. Try and calm them down. Peter Leven, to be fair, does look like he delivers a morose team talk if he's interviews or anything to go by.
I mean, it's hard to say too much about Aberdeen other than what you said. Kind of what we know already, that they're a team full of technically kind of really good players that should be playing a lot better than they have this season, but they've just got really little heart and fight and spirit about them. And it's hard to know what else to say when they're stuck in this seemingly never-ending holding pattern of not having a manager. Jimmy Talleen was sacked 4 weeks ago.
Aye.
What are they doing?
That's a lot for mid-season. To have a month without a manager mid-season.
Especially when it's the January window.
They're just doing it anyway. I like that as well. This German bloke's just going to hire himself. It just absolutely stinks. I'm just going, I'll just do it. I'll just do it till the end of the season. I'll be signing these boys anyway. I know what I want for them. And I feel like that's really starting to feel like it's on the cards. In terms of like battling qualities, I was going to ask you, like, did Olasanya, who came on at half-time, obviously a well-known sort of workhorse, striker, a scamperer, who never gives you a moment peace, goes in over the top. Did he bring any of that sort of, I know the Scottish Premiership, I work hard, I'm going to pressurise the back line? Did any of that come to fruition? Well,
he didn't pressurise the back line because Aberdeen kind of changed tactics when they did what I like teams to do when they get a man sent off, and that they went 4-3-2 rather than 4-4-1. Especially when they were losing the game. That makes more sense. So obviously it didn't work out and they could have lost by more. But if you're not giving up on the match, that's what you've got to do, as opposed to just having 2 banks and one guy standing up front on his own. But they took off Nisbet. So they brought on Olasanya at half-time for Bilalovic and started him on the flank, and then he moved into the centre when Nisbet went off for, I can't remember who it was that came on now actually. But Clarkson, yeah. And therefore what they did after that was that they moved Keskinen up top. And so it was the 2 speedsters up top, Keskinen and Olasanya. And their plan for that point was to try and go over the top.
To a team that's already winning with 11 men who isn't going to play high up the pitch. Wow, the tactics are exceedingly good, I've got to say.
Yeah, it was Yeah, it didn't work out. And so all of a sudden, he done a lot of running. None of it came to anything else to be said. Let's just see. Anything else to say?
Can I ask about... Sorry, I don't know if you're going to talk about Aberdeen anymore, but I just wanted to ask, when Curtis came on for Kilty, was there a shape change at all, or do you think that McCann will look to stick with this formation that gets John Jules and Anderson up front, but with Curtis maybe playing that role in behind and at the tip of the diamond? Because I'm right in thinking that Curtis is probably thought of as a bit more of a winger than that role, but is that where you think Cam might end up using him?
He came on and played as the number 10 in this game, and whether he'll do it going forward. So he signed 2 wingers the day before this game, which would suggest he's going to move to a 4-3-3 soon enough, and that's the formation he preferred at Dundee. So that is maybe his long-time goal. But I mean, the diamond's working for now, but it doesn't mean he's going to keep working forever. And I imagine that, especially since he stuck with it after signing 2 wingers and after being gubbed at Motherwell, I think he will stick with it for the time being. I would be surprised if he changes it now, and he'll keep it until it stops working. But I think the most important thing is that they've now got, whether they're up to the task or not, is we'll wait and see. But the fact is that they're actually bringing in players who are guys who like to operate in the attackive, creative areas, which is something that Killie have been badly missing all season.
Really lacking, aye. And that's interesting as well. That means that, like you said, now they've got options. It was more like turgid in terms of just getting bodies on the pitch. Sometimes with Kilmarnock, you're just looking at it going like that. Ugh. And it's like guys like Dackers, as you say, when they're playing, it's like they've got attributes, but it's just attributes of being able to get the ball in the box and maybe have a nice turn. It's like he's massive, rather than it being anything to do with these sort of all-round ability. Whereas if you hope with guys like Curtis and Hugel, maybe that there's football in there, that they can actually jump between it. And then, as I said, you've still got John Jules to allow you to maybe hit long and play into feet when you wanted to hit there. And then you've got Anderson going around it. I love that goal. Thought it was great. I'd be really chuffed if I'm McCann with that, seeing like these 2 guys getting them up front together and they connect like that instantly. And it's like a ruthless finish from Anderson, which is something that's not always the case with Bruce Anderson. He's sort of like a poor man's Kenny Miller, isn't he? Really, in terms of like the way he plays, and include his finishing in that, but it can be quite erratic, just like Kenny Miller's were back in the day.
That's a good comp. I like that.
And then, and obviously Kilmarnock, Kilrusen goals didn't drop a clanger this week, which is good against when you were thinking. Because when I first saw the game, I was like, are they just going to sort of try and outdo each other, Meathoff and Roos, over the course of the game? Ends up 4-3 with 6 goalkeeper errors. But Striak was back on the bench. So you imagine if he's genuinely recovered from I think the heart issue, if that's common knowledge, is that right?
Yeah. He said himself
that he's genuinely recovered for that he might get back in. And then, like you're saying, then you've got like Curtis, a bit of an attacking player. You've got John Jules and Anderson looking like they can possibly play well together. And you've got a goalie who looked good before. Then suddenly things can really look up in a week. Things can change drastically.
And their centre halves played well in this one. They've had issues at that all season. Well, I say all season. Ever since Striak got injured, the defence really went to pot after that. And Robbie Dees in particular, I've seen him get a lot of stick off Killie fans this season. I thought he had a really good game. So that also bodes well.
And the Kilmarnock admin on Twitter seemed to enjoy this game quite a lot.
Yes.
Fair play to him. That's your role in that as a Twitter guy for these football clubs. It's weird. We've got this real weird issue with Twitter as being like probably like the main communication tool to the majority of the fan base. But it's also like it's meant to be a bit of a laugh because it's still Twitter. That's really what Twitter. Anyone who uses Twitter properly knows that it should actually be more light-hearted. It's kind of like, I think, what Twitter is at its best. So that it gets caught between 2 stools, I feel like, when people expect it to be quite serious and you're the main communication tool for it. But at the same time, we all want there to be sort of like a bit of patter and stuff. So it gets caught, I think,
it does,
Twitter admins between like 2 stools of what they're actually meant to be.
Aye, it's more of that. I mean, Twitter's a fucking hellscape. It may as well just let them have fun and be unprofessional.
Exactly. I think I do. I agree with that in general. I think anyone who doesn't like your Elon Musk gang as well should remember that don't have political debates on Twitter. You're not going to win them either because of how it's designed. So just take the piss and have a laugh. Like, that's really how, and then maybe X could be saved from the attitude of all the normal people just to not get dragged in by all the other things possibly.
Right, so moving on from politics to Dundee United 0, Hearts 3, the game which took place at 8 p.m. on Saturday evening. Hearts winning through goals from Pierre Landry Cabori with a double, either side of a Alexandros Kizaridis penalty, but that wasn't all, with Amar Fata being sent off between Hearts' first and second goals, and Panashute, however you pronounce his first name, Camera. I've gotten this far in the season, I still don't know how to pronounce his first name. And I heard it being pronounced differently by Ian Crocker last night, and then I saw in the Discord that somebody said, well, he butchered that pronunciation. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to go off the back of that then. Camera was sent off shortly, I should say, before Hearts scored their third goal through Cabori. And yeah, I mean, from a Hearts point of view, like Devlin, between the beating St Mirren and the Celtic game, you lose Devlin, you lose Shanklin, both for 6 to 8 weeks. Hearts fans, I think rightly so at the time, said, right, that's us knackered. We're not going to be able to get past losing the best player at the club overall and the best player at the club this season. And yet, drew with Celtic, like, put the controversy to the side. I know that's very hard for Celtic fans to do, but put the controversy to the side. Hearts were the better team that game, should have won it, and then comfortably take care of business at Tannadice. And this is where you are starting to really think, bloody hell, this could actually happen, because if Hearts can continue getting results like this without Devlin and Shanklin, and the squad just has that depth to it that can keep it going for the rest of the season, and McInnes, because he's pushed into it, is having to trust some other players more. And Mark Leonard, after that terrible first half against Celtic, is looking like a good signing, and he was the man who was fouled. Would you call one of them a foul? Fouled for both the red cards in this one. And you're starting to... Tony, I'm starting to get a bit more excited, I have to say.
Well, Graham will be pleased. And, well, Mark Leonard, yeah, we're calling that a foul. I think with the Mark Leonard one is where we need to get referees to be brave enough to red card Kamara for the headbutt and then book Leonard for the dive. I think, and that would work. These things would work. I would have respect for that if people are willing to do it. But yeah, Leonard, it's more rather than him being like a hunter, if you like Devlin, who sort of gets around the pitch and you can't miss him. You know, Devlin, you can't miss him. He makes himself front and centre for various different ways. Whereas Leonard probably brings a bit more calm on the ball than maybe what Devlin's does. And also Leonard, it looks like more like it's positional sense and reading of the game for breaking up the play rather than sort of sheer energy, force of will, and diving into tackles everywhere. So he's like, he's doing the same job as Devlin, but from what I looked at watching last night, but in a different way.
Yeah, you're right. He's a bit more... He certainly did show more so against Celtic, he did show the ability to kind of scamper around the park a wee bit. He's not quite just kind of rooted to the defensive midfield spot, but you're right in the sense that he's probably got a bit more positional discipline than Devlin does, and he sees it as his role to safeguard an area of the park rather than wanting to win the ball wherever it is on the field. And that might if for McInnes, maybe I'd say, I don't know, he's obviously still a conservative manager and he's quite safety first. But with Leonard in there, that might allow him to build up a bit of trust with the fitness returning to Agu. And there was him being obviously much more of an attacking midfielder, having, again, that's what I've been told. I mean, I've barely seen the guy. I think he's an attacking number 8, I think, is his proper kind of position.
So with Leonard in there being quite disciplined, as you're saying, that might nudge McInnes along into maybe giving Agu more some opportunities going forward with having a player like that in beside him. Again, I said this is a joke on our WhatsApp last night because we were talking about Magnuson and McEntee, like who was going to play on the right, and it looked like in the end, I mean, we thought it was going to be Magnuson because he's done that in previous games this season, but he went with McEntee, and that just always makes me laugh for the reason because you always have to remember away from all the noise of Hearts and Jamestown and everything else, that this is still very much a Derek McInnes team. And Derek McInnes deserves, I think, a lot more credit than I think he's actually possibly getting, which seems weird considering he's kind of a media darling, McInnes, and he's really, really popular. But because people get so caught up in the whole Jamestown side of things, people forget that McInnes is still playing McEntee right midfield, and the main reason is so Swallow can shell balls out from there into right hand side to win sort of knockdowns and headers in that sort of like very, very rudimental sort of fashion that we do in Scottish football. And I say that's why it all makes it all even more difficult to stomach. It's because Hearts are still doing this in a very, very Derek McInnes sort of conservative fashion. And that isn't overly, I don't mean that properly as a criticism. It just when someone wrote, I think it was you wrote that last night as the reason, that I was like, that reminds me exactly that this is actually being built on Derek McInnes. It is.
Yeah, and I mean, last night's team was
horses for courses type thing, isn't it?
No, I was going to say in terms of Jamestown, like last night, I mean, you can only say, I mean, Finlay was passed by Jamestown, but I think it was borderline. And reading between the lines, I think Derek McInnes was like, I think they just let me have that one. Like, instead of saying, because he's like getting up in years, he's only on loan he's obviously now signed, but you're not going to make any money off him, and he's like advanced stats I don't think are particularly impressive. So Finlay, you can maybe count as just a McInnes signing. You've got Halkett there, and Swallow is signed by Hearts because Jamestown don't go goalkeepers. But everybody else in the team was signed under the Jamestown analytics. But earlier in the season, it was certainly a case where you only really had Kieseridis, Milne, and Braga were like the only players in the starting 11 most weeks, and the rest of it was just typical. Or McEntee as well, I suppose. You have to count him as Jamestown, but it was largely built off of like guys like Beningame and Devlin and Shankland and Halkett, guys who were already there, guys who were in a team last season that finished 7th. So, yeah, you're right in terms of that is very much still McInnes's
blueprints. Fingerprints are all. And an interesting bit to go into the actual match now is that I was sort of talking about the McEntee on the right-hand side with Altenia, that I think ended up working well. But I think before the red card, I don't know if it was working that well. I think Dundee United were getting quite a lot of joy down Hearts' right-hand side. Yeah. And the main issue with what was going on with getting that joy is that Ferry's deliveries from there and shooting from there was pants. Even though they were getting quite a lot of space, and I thought Dundee United in the first sort of 10 to 15 minutes, they were getting the ball switched quickly between the fullbacks, and they were finding a lot of space in the wide areas. Because obviously with McEntee playing and tucking in a bit, Altenia and Milne, they both, with obviously Kieseridis being on the other side, they were relatively exposed. So it was like the complete opposite of the Celtic game where they played the 4 centre halves in there. And this is where I was going into this horses for courses idea, is that I thought Dundee, like, when he went with them, it looked like Dundee United were able to actually get at them. But then once the sending off had happened, then it was like Milne was getting like the freedom of that left-hand side, and it was really working for McEntee when the balls were going over. So I do think Hearts were fully in control. They absolutely dominated this game. I thought they played against a team with 10 men in that environment with the pitch and stuff. I thought they'd done that really, really well. Yeah. I thought they didn't get themselves overexcited, and I mean that in a good way, because they're in the heat of the battle right now. You could get carried away and try and go looking to add a lot of sauce to the scoreline, which probably isn't what's needed right this second. Getting the 3 goals.
That was maybe the only thing, because they created, Sky said after the game that Hearts XG was the highest of any team in the Scottish Premiership this season.
So 4.89.
So they should have got two more goals, and that is a bit of a concern though, because the goal difference might end up mattering at the end of the season. And it's now Hearts, I think, are +8 ahead of Rangers, but if Rangers are 7 points behind, and that 8 could be made up quite comfortably by those. Well, not fully, but it could at least bring it back to, like, you know, I mean, you can imagine Rangers would win 2 games by 3 goals, and then you get the other, or Hearts draw a game and Rangers win 3 or whatever, however it works out. But you can see the Rangers could quite quickly, if they're going to make up the points gap, can make up that goal difference gap. And this was a game where it was possible to extend it a bit further, and there was just, not only did the Dundee United keeper have a good game,
Maynard Brewer,
yeah, unusual for somebody to lose his 3 goals, but none of them were his fault, and he done very well with some of the saves otherwise, especially that one from Reciew at the end. That was just like incredible save, like really, really good. And it would have been great for Ajew to get his first goal as well, to just kind of get that confidence, make him feel a bit more settled, a bit more confidence, etc., etc. But
the thing is that Hearts are, can't believe it, but I'd say he's are relatively profligate in front of goal. I think a lot of the time Hearts can be quite wasteful. Like the Livingston game being a case in point round the festive period.
Not only profligate in front of goal, but also quite lax a lot of the time in the final third, because it wasn't just the missed opportunities in this game in terms of the shots that they had. It was also the amount of times they got the balls in really good areas and picked the wrong option. Yeah,
because it's like, obviously in recent weeks, the side of Hearts has been, they've managed to get ahead, and then with the 10 men, blah, 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 it's been not shut up shop, but say to teams that aren't so good, can you do anything but cross the ball in? No, you can't. Or for the sake of submitting, do you want to have the ball? No, you don't. Well, try it. Here you go, have it. So it was like kind of different. But like I said, when you're bookmarking those with the Livingston and the Dundee United game, where Hearts were probably more on the properly on the front foot in the game, and I thought in both games, and I sat here, I was unfortunate. My people who probably listen to this know that my dad's a huge Jampo, and if people wonder the reason for that is because he's my stepdad and came in just a bit too late to poison me. So
came in just a bit too late to make you happy.
And he had these Hearts pals rounds that he goes to the games with. So and I had to watch the game because I was doing this. So I was in like a horrible position. Really, wasn't over the most enjoyable experience of my life. So like they were watching it, and they were commenting about, so but the Hearts did miss quite a lot of chances, and like I said, but it wasn't like they were losing control and overcommitting. It was just through sort of like creating a chance every 10 minutes, you know? Like, and obviously after Dundee United, McInnes spoke about it after the game, after Dundee United had their biggest chance in the second half with Sapsford's header. He did sort of change tact a bit, but they still were, like when he was like building up a bit slower, making sure they still had bodies behind the ball, they were still letting the game be played in front of them rather than overcommitting. Which I thought was quite smart, but you're right, they still could have added a lot to this game. But to go back to the Ferry thing, I'm not having it, Dundee United fans. I know they've been at you over the course of the season. You're not telling me that Ferry's not having a bad season. He's nowhere near the player he was last season. And even if it's just boils down to quality from delivery as being the main thing that's lacking, that's a huge thing for Ferry. That was the thing that we were always banging on about. So you can't really remove that as the main attribute from and the thing that's lacking. Because I thought Ferry was pretty poor in the game in general, and I say before and after the red card, and to go through other Dundee United players when they lost Fata, that red card I didn't like, a red card that I accept a red card, but don't really like them. I think it's just an accident, and I think these things happen quite a lot, and I think VAR is the main reason that kind of comes out of that. I think a lot of other people seem to think it was like a stone cold red card. I wrote that I thought it was a red card, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think he really overly wants any of this to happen. So they lost all their flair essentially at that point. And then that Mauler up front, I'm going to make a decision for you, Goodwin. Get Sapsford back on.
Well, Sapsford, he did say before the game that Sapsford wasn't starting because, and I think Sapsford started every game up until then. It was because he picked up a knock in training and only trained on the Friday.
Play starting then, whoever. Play someone else.
play someone else.
Walters, fine, Owen's forgiven, back in.
For the reasons you say, I think it's a red card. I think it is. It doesn't mean it, but it's not. That's not in the rules.
That's not. Exactly.
It's excessive force, and it's definitely a danger of an opponent. It was a straight leg. It was a possible ankle breaker. It was just above the ankle as well. So it was one that could have been a really nasty injury. So it's a red card. He's unlucky, but it's a red card.
Yeah.
The penalty, I think it is a penalty. I wasn't sure initially. I thought Braggart maybe bought it, but I think you see in the replays,
he shoots his leg on the line.
Strain does make contact, kind of comes in with his knee, definitely makes contact with Braga. Braga does well to just get the touch first. I would say he's still in control of the ball, so Strain does it, and it's definitely inside the box. I'm not saying, like people saying, was it in the penalty area? Braga had his foot in the penalty area and then he's fouled. That makes it a penalty. And I actually thought the camera red, I don't think that was the right decision. I thought that should have been a yellow. However, we haven't had the proper...
Rubs his face against him like a cat. But
So,
from his point of view, though, if I'm Goodwin, I'd be absolutely fuming at Kamara. It's so fucking dumb.
It's a stupid thing to do. And he pushes him at the same time as well. But like, for it to be like violent conduct, it used to be that anytime you put your head on an opposition player, regardless of the strength of it, then it was a red card. Like a famous Hearts incident from the past was Davy Weir getting sent off at Ibrox for doing it to Gordon Durie, where he kind of motioned his head towards him, and Durie didn't even know.
Weir all day. That's our point of reference.
Yeah,
I mean, people on here that listen that don't know who Gordon Durie is.
I mean, people who listen who were not born when that game took place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many people actually, because that was about 30 years ago. It was a famous game of Hearts had 4 men sent off at Ibrox, and Durie didn't even go down. That was the rules back then, that if you did that to an opposition player, then it was a red card. Anything around it, like any kind of elbow, any kind of hand to the face, elbow to the face, anything around the face was a red card. But whether the rules changed or whether there was just more emphasis on what the rules state, it now has to be brutality. I'm not calling that camera head on Leonard brutality.
I love the language people use for this stuff. It's not. But I didn't know that was the case. I just thought it was still like raise your arms. I didn't realise that there had to be brutality. So you are allowed to rub your face on people like a cat.
Yeah,
football might become cosier then. Nice.
I think it should have just been a booking for like unsporting behaviour or whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, there's very little sympathy because of how stupid he was.
Goodwin in trouble now because I guess 2 wins in 14, and now he's going into the Hibs game on Wednesday, and I think it might be St Mirren is the other game. I'm not absolutely certain. The same game, and they'll be missing. Well, Kamara was back on the pitch, so you're assuming that he was coming back to fitness after having some fitness doubts. He's probably the best player, you could argue, in there. He's certainly the most important midfielder. He allows Stevenson to move into other parts of the pitch where they probably need him. So they lose him, and as I said, Fata's like their main sort of like off-the-cuff player who can make something happen that a team who's struggling like that probably needs right now. You know, the confidence isn't there, so you probably are looking for individual brilliance to allow you to get back out of it. So now they're missing them. You're already in a bad run. You're already getting kicked, maybe even getting sucked in a little bit. And now you're going to be missing 2 of your sort of like people that you'd imagine would be 2 of the earlier names on the team sheet for big games. So they've lost a lot from this game.
Yeah.
And then they've dropped Esselink and Ovu, who like a lot of people thought Esselink, Ovu I'm not a big fan of either, but Esselink definitely had to be dropped. So like that's been done, and then they still concede 3 goals. And then I'm saying like Will Ferry, not great in the game, also might get sold. I think there's a possibility going into
there's rumours about it.
Like with him getting sold, and then we go into the first goal. Which, from a Dundee United perspective, was a terrible goal to lose. And like Cleo Hardin, you just need to do much better to stop that cross. You've caught up. You need to just slide early. You need to your technique needs to be better to make that block to stop the cross. And then the 2 defenders in there, you both want to do the same thing and block the cutback. And then obviously when they both don't do it, it's like a dream for Milne, who's had to bomb. Like, you know, when you have to work that hard to get on the outside, and you're probably quite tired when you get there. The preference when you stretch your legs that much is just to drive it across goal, because cutting it back takes more energy. You have to get ahead of the ball. You have to drive it back. You know, there's more to the technique, if you understand what I mean, when you're probably a bit puffed out from the drive and run. And then he's able to just, well, great, if you're both going to drop back like that, I'll just drill it across 6-yard ball. And like Kibori, where you just go, well, amazing, I'll just stand on the line and tap it in. If you're both going to block the cutback. So I say good for Hearts' point of view, very good from Milne. But for a Dundee United point of view, and Cleo Hardin and the defenders, it's hopeless. And like I said, when you're trying to remake your back 3 because it's not been good enough because 2 of them have been shit, not a great start. But when you're watching it from there, from members of it, and then like I said, Dundee United just toothless from there. Nothing. You just knew the second that red card came in, you're like, well, that's that game over. If I was anywhere else in the world at that point, I would have just switched it off. But I couldn't. I couldn't because I'm asked to do this as well.
Well, talking about a game you could have switched off quite early. Livingston 0, Motherwell 2. A double from Tawanda Maswanishe, the top goal scorer in the Scottish Premiership, I believe. Or is he joint or is he top by himself at this point in time?
I think he might be joint. I think he might be the outright because he scored 2 yesterday.
Yeah, he did. He scored twice in this game. As in, yes, he's there by himself. I didn't realise he was tied with Neger and Shanklin beforehand. So he's out there on his own with 13 goals this season. And I certainly hope that Motherwell hold on to him between now and the end of the season. 2 reasons. One, it could do with a team taking points off of Celtic and Rangers. And 2, it's just, you don't want this Motherwell story to end, at least until the season's complete. And he's such a big part of it. With Motherwell in general, the system is a big part of it. And I don't think necessarily Maswanishe is going to be as effective a player or as good as he's looked this season if he goes elsewhere. However, without him, Motherwell still lack, I think,
they're toothless at that area. There's no killer at the end.
Like Stamatopoulos is somebody that in the past has looked like a good finisher, but he's struggled this season and he's, I believe, out injured anyway, is he, at this point in time? Am I right in saying that? Was he on the bench yesterday? He was...
So this is one of the one game we could watch, isn't it?
He was on the bench yesterday. He just didn't come on.
But they've signed that man. I'm not going to bother with his name. Bjorg Olofsson as an alternative striker as well, haven't they? The Scandinavian or Icelandic man going by his name.
Yes, he came on yesterday. He came on after I'd stopped watching. But yeah, I don't know. They might be able to replicate it with somebody else filling that role because it is Motherwell this season. It's
difficult. Maswanishe's been again. I was going to say, the reason I chose not. We were speaking before it. What game we're going to watch, and I ended up watching Dundee St Mirren, which, as you'll hear in a minute, was a bad decision. And then with Motherwell, because I just don't know what else I can say. I don't know. And they were playing Livingston, so I was like, well, we're going to wipe the fucking floor with them. So I don't really know what else I can add from I've been banging this Motherwell drum from so early, and now I'm moving into the new side of it, where I've been waxed lyrical about them pretty much since day one. I've been on this Askew train, and now I've moved differently from you as I'm moving into the bit where I'm getting fucking bored of it, and I want him to and Maswanishe, I called him, I said that he was like a young Michael Owen last week when I'd done this. So I don't really have any more movement with Maswanishe of where to go. And that's the same with Motherwell. It's just incessantly good. It's just incessantly good. And nothing's ever a problem. They're the most convincing team in the league. They swat everyone. Aside, no one scores against them. They score loads. They have complete control of the game. And I know Livingston had an early chance possibly, but outside of that, it's just complete and utter control and domination. It's frightening.
So I hesitated to say that they couldn't replace Maswanishe because it has very much been a case of next man up with this Motherwell team this season.
They make 5 changes a week nearly.
And even in this one as well, even without Elliot Watt, Priestman's not as good at Watt, but having not been impressed by him really at all in the game at Easter Road. I think he's improved since then, and he had a good game in this one. And so they've just kind of got it all over the park where they managed to fit in these players who, somebody goes out and they manage to bring in somebody who could do it. But with Maswanishe, it is just different though when you're asking to replace the combination of pace, movement and finishing ability that he has. That's something that exists kind of outside a system really. And you're probably looking at a player in this Motherwell team who you would fancy the most to go on and have a really good career elsewhere after he leaves Motherwell, then he's probably your number one contender for that.
Yeah, and it's just, I have to say that I don't really have much room to go with Maswanishe in terms of the praise that I've given him. Michael Owen, he doesn't like films, but he did actually win the Ballon d'Or, did he not, one year? So, it's pretty fucking high praise for Maswanishe. And again, it's like that first goal. Now it's like a cleverly looping, lobbing header that he's pulled at the bag. The variation every single time. Every time I hear about Maswanishe scored, I have no idea what the goal's like. And that's really high praise for a forward. Because you think, when you see Maswanishe, he's going to be possibly, especially playing in the Scottish Premiership, that you think when you see him, he's going to be a one-dimensional player who sits on the shoulder of the defence, possibly scores tap-ins, and plays on the shoulder and maybe scores one-on-ones. And sometimes he's erratic at that. That's what I picture when I think of Maswanishe. But now that you've got to see him over the season, it's lethal. It's it doesn't matter. The second goal, it's just the minute that pass gets made and he gets to his feet, you've no doubt that it's going to nestle perfectly in the bottom corner. The R2 FIFA sort of finish, curling it in there. When you do it in FIFA, it looks like a fucking doddle. But I'm assuming it's not really when the pressure of the stadiums there on you.
The Thierry refinish.
Yeah, and he just does that. And so he's scoring little lobbing headers. He's scoring volleys from the edge of the box. He's got rifles from about 20 yards against Hibs, when it's like, that's a half chance to win against Hibs. That doesn't get scored all the time in Scotland. It's proper lethal sort of finish, the counter-attack and doing it. And the praise just isn't enough. And as I said last week, the beauty of him is that this team sets up that he can play on the fringes. He just concentrates on getting into positions to finish moves and to give options. And then when you're talking about the people trading in, they're playing in that back four that never ever concedes any goals ever. They're playing 3 fullbacks and a winger. So it's absolutely doesn't make any sense. And as I said, with Slattery back in now, he created another goal yesterday, which just makes them much better. But again, like I said, the reason I didn't watch is because I just don't really know if I've got anything else to add on Askew Motherwell. So let's slag off my Livingston.
Well, no, let me. I've got some things to say about Motherwell that maybe haven't been said. So 3 things. Yeah, firstly, I've not got this written down, so I'll say this while it's top of my head in case I forget. Callum Ward, like you talk about Motherwell don't concede any goals. Earlier this season, we were like, yeah, you want to play this style of play, but come on, man, you need to be swapping your goalkeepers out because Callum Ward's just making too many errors. It's costing you too many points, and you can't go through your season like this. Well, Askew was right. We were wrong. He was right to stick with him. He's not. When was the last time he made a mistake?
But he made a very egregious error in this game and got away with it, did he not?
I might have missed that.
I think he got tackled and when he had the ball and they nearly scored and he got away with it.
So the highlights, but the Motherwell game wasn't available before I watched it. Now I said I watched it, but I only watched the first half. So did this happen in the second half?
Yeah. But again, and also I'm not. I still don't think it negates your point. I mean, he's just because he nearly made an error when he was under pressure in this game doesn't take away 10 clean sheets in a row, whatever it's called.
Why were Chris has highlights packages? Why Scout does have a highlights feature and it didn't have it on that, so that's a bit poor. So I didn't see this, but yeah, in general, he has got better and he made a big save early in this game when Livingston had a chance within the first couple of minutes.
It's a huge save.
About a minute before Motherwell scored their opener. However, what I will say is that, the second bit of praise I wanted to have for Motherwell is that, because I was going to do a segue to Livingston there, but I forgot I did say I was going to say 2 other things about Motherwell in this match, so I'll do that first.
You'll get pulled up by the Motherwell fans. Where's my second point?
Second and third point I was really missing out there. So the second point was that with this game and the game last week, so this is maybe the other side that Motherwell are now showing as well, and that they've been a nice story for a lot of the season, and a lot of it has been us marvelling at their ability to play this game and to be such difficult opponents for bigger teams, and even teams like higher above them in the league, like Hearts haven't beaten them this season. They drew with Rangers earlier in the campaign. They should have won at Fir Park. They've beaten Celtic. But now everybody just expects Motherwell to win these matches, to beat Killie at home, to beat Livingston away. And that's a different kind of pressure, especially when you're a team that plays this brand of football. Can you do it under those circumstances? Yes. Emphatically, yes. And finally, just in terms of I was quite fascinated with their formation in the first half, because I would have thought, if I'd seen the team beforehand, I would have thought that Just was on one of the flanks and Said would have been through the middle, like they lined up at Easter Road, which was the last time I saw them. Instead, Just was playing pretty much as a forward, and it was Said on the right. But Said was very central, and then so was Slattery. And I was thinking, that's interesting, because they're really narrow, but they're so good at playing football, they don't need to have width, which is incredible to say. But it's because they've got this ability to thread the needle so well with their understanding and their technique and their passing, that they don't need to stretch the field in order to open up these avenues. They can just thread that needle through. And that's just very impressive.
Because now they can, because that's why some of the best teams in the world are able to do it, because they can dominate those the central areas, you're obviously more likely to score when you're playing.
Yeah, you've got your dangerous players closer to goal.
So that's why they're able to do it, and that's why, again, now we move into wank mode, people playing in the half spaces and all that jazz. But again, it's just not something you sort of witness really in Scotland, because just players aren't that good. But as I said with Motherwell, it just, as you say, just keeps on giving things that you don't think are possible. Mr. Askew with this group of players is just able to do it. A man who can't get anything out of any players is David Martindale, Fowler.
Well, I was going to make the transition I was going to make was that even if Livingston had scored that early chance and went 1-0 up, I still think this game ends only one way, and that's a Motherwell victory.
Maybe even worse for angering them.
Yeah. They don't conserve their energy in the second half. They're just like, fuck yes.
You try and mock me. There we go.
Looking at Livingston, Livingston are so done, and I'll get to why. So their game plan in this one seemed to be to try to match Motherwell in terms of playing football. Like, they were very open, they were very expansive, they did create that chance, and they had some other opportunities around the penalty area where they maybe could have got a goal. But they also could have conceded about 7 in the first half alone. And I was like, what are they doing? But then you look at the makeup of that squad, and you look at the first goal. It's Tawanda Maswanishe winning a header in the 6-yard box. Like,
yeah,
Livy,
if we move away from me praising them and we look at it from the other person's point of view, not great.
Yeah. Livy don't have any centre-halves who are particularly strong in the air. And probably the strongest defender in the air would probably be Ryan McGowan, who's had a very serious illness this year, has not been the same player since he came back from that illness, and is in his mid-30s. But you look at him, he's not particularly dominant in the air. Best of the defenders they've got, but not particularly dominant. Finlayson, a fullback who's kind of flitting in at centre-half. When he initially went there alongside Wilson after McGowan went out, he kind of steadied things, but he was somebody that wasn't really looked upon as a particularly great player for Livingston in the Championship, and I think you're starting to see that he's not really cut out for this level. Danny Wilson, just been poor ever since a solid start, a solid first month or 6 weeks to the season. He's been poor. And none of them are really dominant players in the air, and they don't have any centre-halves like that. I don't have any defenders like that. They're quite a small team in general. And this season, Livingston have won. Now, I'm assuming this is an average because the numbers don't quite add up if it's trying to add up to 100. But this season, Livingston have won 42.6% of their aerial duels, while opponents, and I'm assuming this is an average for opponents across the league, have won 49.1. So that's well below league average for the Livy team. And you think about the prior Martindale teams. Yeah, they weren't as terrible at football and so horrendously negative as the last team that went down, but they were still put pragmatism above everything else. And I think that Martindale maybe heard the criticism from that and maybe just enjoyed last season a little too much. Maybe just enjoyed the fact that they were able to go out and attack teams. And didn't have to play.
Who could blame him after years and years and years of having to do the other way? Yeah.
But he's clearly doubled down on it this season. He's wanted them to play. He said himself he wanted them to play more attacking than they did. He wanted them to play better football. But I mean, come on. You're starting a front three of Stevie May, Robbie Muirhead and Conor McLennan. It's not going to work. You have to make yourselves harder to beat. And the mental thing is that they've been bad at this all season and they've not tried to address it in January. They've not signed the only centre-half they've signed is Mitchell Robertson, who was on loan at Inverness Kelly at the first half of the season, who they signed from Celtic. He's 20 years old and they put him back on loan at Kelly.
And I mean, that front three, when you honestly, I was looking at their team when you were saying I was about to come in with that as my point. Because I'm thinking with another year down on May and Muirhead, I don't know if I'd say that's a mid-table championship front line, not even maybe not even a top of the table championship front line. Now, maybe I'm being a bit rude, but it's just.
Well, I don't think McLennan played for them. But wait, was McLennan a summer signing or was he? I can't remember if he was there last season or not. But McLennan, I would say, is about that level. Muirhead was definitely top level of the championship. But to be fair, May wasn't that great for Livy last year. So maybe you've actually got a point there.
That's it. When they added the age to it, and it's like, well, I don't know if that's great. I mean, I felt terrible when I saw that. Is it Suso had went back to Man City? I was like, oh no. that's bad news considering I don't even think he's incredible, but just that the team can't lose anyone that you go sometimes, oh, he looks all right.
To be fair, because of what I said, because of what the biggest problem is, I don't think it's that big a loss because I don't think I don't think it makes much of a difference. It does make them weaker, but what they really need to do is they need to find some fucking centre-half who can head the ball, and they've only got a day to do it.
And a striker who can head the ball. Go for it.
Ah, yeah.
Guys that can head. And I had a twinge of sadness when I saw Martindale after the game. Very melancholy. Sort of like, I'll never, ever walk away from this club. All that stuff. And it does sound like a guy who's maybe getting in his head that we're maybe hitting the end of the road. And and he was basically saying, what was it, the exact words? I'll have to be sacked or they'll find me dead in the dugout. Which is something like really, really sweet almost about it, because it's like it is very much a guy saying it's my club, etc., etc. But also when he starts to get that extreme, when you speak like that, that tells me that like you're being whimsical. You're looking in the past. You're starting to look at this as something from the past in your life because that's coming, and you're starting to talk quite openly about how your real feelings about your love for something. Because it's like talking, it's almost like when you start talking about a relative who's terminally ill, and you almost start talking about them in the past tense, even though they're still there, and you're sort of like talking about them as their whole life and your whole past, and that's what it felt like with Martindale there, as a guy who's sort of like coming to terms with like someone might have to pull him aside and go, sorry mate, but we want to win. So.
Sorry, mate, it's important to us to win football games.
And that's coming for someone who is anyone who listens to this knows how big a fan of Martindale I've been over the years. But I just how to get to the stage of like, how do you defend never winning ever?
Yeah. And Calvin Ford's comments at the start of January, at the time we kind of thought of it as vote of confidence stuff and thought, oh, Martindale's in a bit of bother. But you have to remember that Calvin Ford he's not versed in the Scottish football or the British football culture of vote of confidence is basically meaning the manager's got 2 weeks in which to save his job. When he says that he doesn't want to have an environment in which managers are getting cycled through and he wants continuity and he doesn't want to sack coaches and Martindale has his full backing, he actually probably meant it. So maybe Martindale's got a wee bit more of a stay of execution, but you would not be surprised if he's gone within the next couple of days.
Right, now the boring bit, is it?
Yep, let's go to our last game. St Mirren 0, Dundee 0. Tony, there was a red card in this. I think what you said about the Fata one, I think is probably I thought this one was even more harsh because I think it's even less careless because I think he's to me it looks like he's literally just putting his foot down. And when he's putting his foot down, in the time between, his opponent has made a tackle, and then his foot is where the grass used to be.
Just accident, man. These things are allowed to be accident. This is a thing that, again, like what we used to talk about with handballs and things like that. These are things we just used to know before VAR. You got it. That. Even though I think this was a straight red anyway. So I think so maybe I'm being a bit unfair there. I think the referee gave it on the pitch, but I just felt like we used to know that was a mistake. And like it looks bad, but it's not. It doesn't. So I felt for Young. I mean, Young and Etete. So I mean, big changes for Robinson up front. Given I think both of them their first starts. He made it was like I think it was quite a telling sort of lineup from Robinson. Is that I'm just no having it when you're Ndalindaloo not playing, Mandron not playing, Declan John not playing. These are guys that. He sort of hung his hat on. Richardson not in there, who's played a lot. Even McMenamin, who's played a fair amount of football in recent weeks under Robinson. It looked like a guy who was really trying to, I need to try and find a formula. It's not working. These guys are my favourites, probably, but it's not working. I need to do something. So it was quite with Young and Etete starting up front. Soberwell playing out on the out right wing back. Scott Tanzer getting a start at left wing back, who's not Sowali. Is it Sowali? Is the right wing back? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Subawali. I would say
we'll go with that. Fine. Not a good day for the old pronunciations, fella. But that's for me. That's commonplace. and Tanzer. So there was a big change, and it was a manager really felt like he was desperately looking for a solution. To talk about Young, because obviously he got red card later on. Young was both relatively impressive and hugely frustrating, especially in the first half. His touch was really good when they were getting to him. He was turning he was turning really sharply, and then he would go right to the heart of the team. And I was like, one of those when you're watching, especially as a neutral, you're like, this guy's caught your eye instantly because of that sort of style of play. And then his execution and passing was doing my fucking head, and it was terrible every time. And I would have been like, because there's nothing worse. I don't actually believe, because I think you want a guy who looks, we've had this conversation a few times on here, you want a guy who looks like he is going to do something, because there's so many players who never look like they're going to do anything. So that thing when people get overly frustrated about a guy's pure execution, I still want the guy who turns and goes at the team, because 1 time out of 10 he's going to create something, you'll probably score because of that style. But with this right at the start, it was just annoying, because I'm like, eat your seat a little bit, and then he's casting the outside his right foot directly to an opponent who's about 4 yards away from him. Not great. And then in the end he gets sent off. Etete, it was like he wasn't on the pitch, man. And it was no shock to me when Mandron was brought on at half time and Young was left on there, because Etete done. I think the best thing Etete done was he helped with a counter-attack where maybe it was all the wrong way around. Gogic made a bombing run. So it was really, really poor from 2 seconds. Was it maybe Danda or Hamilton made a really poor pass, try to go at a corner to put the ball back in, and they passed it directly to Etete, who ran forward, and then I loved it. Gogic sprinting down one side on the counter-attack, and then Dick King on the other, bombing into the box. It was good. And Etete, to be fair, but it's the only time I saw him in the game, he picked the right timing of the pass. It was really good. Something that can lack in Scotland sometimes is that timing with a pass on counter-attack, because that's the main skill for a counter-attack, is your timing. And he played it in, and then Gogic perfectly, again, the timing, perfect execution right over to King, and then King sort of just fresh airs it, and maybe he wanted it to be the other way around, and maybe it was Etete that it ran into the box as a striker. But St Mirren, I thought, to both these teams, Fowler, is that they both wanted this to go well. They both were running on the transitions. No one was passing for passing's sake. They were both desperately trying to do the turnovers and move the ball into attacking areas. It's not like we were getting a Paisley special away from home where they just totally sat in. Both teams were really, really desperate to make this worth watching, but they just couldn't bloody manage it, unfortunately. And a big problem when we move over to...
Sorry, just to interject while it's still in my head, just when you were saying Robinson proving a point by bringing in these new guys and dropping the players who've been playing all season. Doesn't really work as well when none of them are making it to 90 minutes, and you're making a couple of changes at half time with Mandron and Richardson coming on instead. It's if you're making a point to the players are just going to be like, well, they're shit as well.
Yeah, but your point's been made, but not the point you were trying to make. Thank you. Yeah. And then if we move over to Dundee, I think when a game's sort of this boring, I think focusing in on the new signings is the fun bit. So they had Cotterill started and Halliday. So on the right hand side there was moments.
By the way, I was so confused, but see when I watched just the 3 minute highlights on the BBC iPlayer, the initial start of it, I was so confused because it really looked like there was 2 Simon Murrays. There was ginger hair, similar builds, and one was wearing 15 and one was wearing 16, and I was like, for a couple of seconds, I was like, what's actually happening here? Is this
Simon
a glitch
Murray
or
playing
something?
right back?
Simon Murray's there twice. What's going on?
Well, I mean, last season, possible. This season, not so much.
No.
It's all everywhere. So they went with that, and as I said, with St Mirren, they had Idowu started, and Solowale, they tried to link up a couple of times. You're like, oh, that looks like something, and then that petered out, and we never saw it again for the rest of the game. And the same for Dundee. They went with Halliday playing it right back, which is the first time I got to see him. They had Dre right over at left back, and then they had Graham and Astley at centre half. And Halliday, I liked a bit of what I saw. It didn't all come off, but you could see that he was going to bring something else to that Dundee team in terms of as an attacking force. there was little moments with triangles with him, Danda, Hamilton coming over there, and Congreve, where you're like adding a bit of athleticism, and Halliday as a player who's willing to go beyond them. Because obviously Danda's got his plus points, but he's not particularly athletic. But Hamilton is really athletic. He gets around. And then Congreve's, he scampers. Congreve's has obviously been a good signing, a good player. So then you're like, that right-hand side, if they get that right, with Halliday's athleticism and his willingness to go beyond, you can see he wants to be an attacking fullback. And I said it didn't all come off for him, but there was flashes where I was like, if I was a Dundee fan, this is what I really want to see. I don't want it to all be mundane. And I feel like on watching him at a glance, there is a decent possibility that he adds another dimension to that Dundee attack out there. Because Dre Wright is decent at left right back and he gets forward, but he's not athletic at all. Dre Wright's always lacked athleticism. And sometimes it doesn't really look like his body shape and stuff. Like, you look like a guy down the pub, Dre. He really does. Just like guy standing by the puggy.
He looks like a pal Andy.
Yeah. You picture him with Dre Wright's got that look where it's like you picture him on a Sunday, baseball cap on, just a t-shirt, jeans, in the boozer with the football on, playing at the puggy. Like, doesn't look bad, but not like just mundane look, just bloke that I ken for doing the pub with a coupon hanging at the back of his pocket. But I don't mean this to slag Dre Wright. I think Dre Wright, that's his 8th season in a row as a player in the Scottish top flight. So he's done really well for a guy who doesn't really have that many, like the athleticism or whatever that you'd expect for a Scottish Premiership player. But then the other player in Cotterill midfield, not so good.
Oh, really?
The game is zoomed past him. He could not. I was shocked that he stayed on for 83 minutes. He just did not get to grips with it whatsoever. In Dundee with that red card, you won't be shocked to say, especially with how bad St Mirren were against Hearts, and Hearts went down to 10 men, it almost benefited St Mirren because Dundee tempted them out a bit more, and then St Mirren actually started to create a couple of chances.
They don't want the ball, so having 10 men is fine. They should maybe try that every game, just get somebody sent off.
I know, Robinson, just G someone up to go and kick someone. I'm sure you want to. So, and then that worked. So it switched when it went down to 10 minutes, and then started to actually create a few chances. And then Dundee, Freck got an amazing header to stop Murray basically having a great chance from a deep cross, but that was sort of the best that they could offer. That you might not have seen that in the highlights because it doesn't turn into a chance.
Right.
But it's really good for Freck, and he's stretching, and that would have been the one moment that they would have totally opened St Mirren up and probably would have ended up being a goal. But yeah, I mean, Indaloo got on in 77 minutes, and I think he had 2 shots on goal, despite them being down to 10 men, which I think tells you, as I said, that it suited them. But yeah, I mean, I've tried my best to get something out of that.
I think you've done very well, Tony, but I think that will do us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everybody for listening. And as I said at the top of the podcast, we will be back tomorrow with the 2 matches on Sunday. Those will be reviewed, as long as nothing goes wrong, those will be reviewed by Ewan Taylor and Robert Borthwick. So tune in then. And until then, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.